There we go. So we're continuing the series that we've been going through on taking refuge. And we've had three talks about taking refuge in the Buddha. And today we're going to begin looking at taking refuge in the Dharma. And what inspired me about these is we were talking about taking refuge and being a community of people who have taken refuge or who are interested in Buddhism. And I wanted to explore what taking refuge really meant. And so we looked at, well, it's a lot about what do I have confidence in? What do I trust? And also, it is something that gives you a safe harbor, a place to be, a place to stand, a place to hold yourself, right? There's some safety in it. So there's that quality of refuge. And so we find some safety and good example in the life story of the Buddha. And we looked at the things that propelled him into his meditation journey, and how the example of, there are moments in each of our lives that initiate a series of changes and growth. And we should use those, right? And then we looked at the second way of looking at the Buddha's life of he tried a lot of different meditations. And, the first one he tried wasn't it. And he didn't say, well, that's it, I'm done, or I'm going to do this one till I die. It's like, well, if that doesn't work, I'll try something else. And so often in the professional coaching world, they say fail forward. And so he failed forward. He would try something, learn from what he got, and then try the next step. And he was very clear he was looking for freedom from suffering, from samsara. And then the third example we talked about in the Buddha's life is at the moment of his enlightenment, he has three critical recognitions over the course of, usually the story is told over the course of a night. So he recognized the truth of impermanence, that everything changes. And then he recognized how everything is interconnected, like a web. And then he recognized what awareness is, or how mind is, what being awake is like. And those three recognitions or realizations produced his enlightenment. And that's what we're aiming for, those three recognitions, that no thing is permanent, every experience is interconnected, and that awake is a possibility. Awake, open heart is a possibility for all of us. So that's taking refuge in the Buddha, finding some confidence in that example and some safety in, oh yeah, that's very human. I could do that. I could aspire to that. And so now the second refuge is taking refuge in the Dharma. And as I thought about this, useful to take a look at the Dharma. Dharma, it's a word that has many meanings. And, in this context, you could say truth, or you could say teachings, the teachings of the Buddha, the truth that the Buddha uncovered and shared. And that has three large divisions that you can look at. So today I just want to look at the foundation teachings. And then next week I hope to look at the greater way teachings, confidence in those. And then after that, confidence in the immediate way teachings, and the Vajrayana or lightning way. But to this week, confidence in the foundation teachings. And the question I asked at the beginning is related to that. The core teaching of the Buddha in the foundation way is that your idea of self, or my idea of who I am, is an illusion. It's like a dream, a mirage, a fantasy, a movie, a story. It's not a solid thing. And yet, all the suffering that we experience, all the struggle, is anchored to believing and holding on to the solidity of the story of me, believing in my movie. I am the hero or the villain or the victim. We all choose a role in a movie, and we're holding on to it, and we believe it. And then there are things that confirm that role and things that challenge that role. And most often, humanity goes through its existence elaborating the role, believing in it, enlisting others as allies to help you believe in it, fighting with people who challenge the role or ignoring them or resisting them. Right? We do our best to stay in character as Brian or whatever you call yourself. and however you understand yourself. And we are addicted to our roles. We believe our stories and we hold on to them for dear life as if they were a rock. And so many times in Community Refuge, we've talked about the Buddha's teaching is experience is more like a flowing river than a rock. And this rock is what is called ego. Actually, the Tibetan word for this, dakzin, could be more literally translated as negative self-cherishing. I'm holding on to me and my idea about me. I'm cherishing it like Gollum, my precious, my precious. I'm holding on to the ring of me, even though it's killing me. And so you think about a fight that you've had with somebody for years, and you're in a struggle with that person, and you want to win the fight. They may not even care. It might not be their fight. It might not even be something they spend much time thinking about, but you're anchored to the fight. You might be like me in my answer to the question I asked of what's an example of a moment where you realized you weren't who you thought you were, right? This 2 days ago, I'm facing a bully, and the bully is being very provocative, and I like to fight. That's my rock. It's one of my rocks. Most of us have many rocks, right? But I like that rock, right? I like being the one who fights the bully, right? That's a great identity. And go, I don't have to do that. And then the river flows. It doesn't mean that it was a she, this bully, she bullies really push my buttons. He bullies don't bother me as much. I don't know. That's my rock. This was a she bully. The she bully really punched my buttons. Oh, I don't have to do that. I'm not as solid. I don't have to always react that way. In fact, I'm only reacting that way because I believe I'm the person who fights the bully. I have this solid identity. I believe in my story. And every time you're in meditation, here's how it works in meditation. You're taking your posture, you've brought your attention to this, very reliable and yet somewhat elusive breath, and you're resting your attention with the breath, and then your attention gets diverted to your story. You might go, oh, that's not really my story, the traffic going by or the desire for lunch or the memory of what happened yesterday. But actually, it is your story. It's how we make up the rock. And very gently, you see yourself telling the story. The gentleness is really key, right? You accept it. Like, I'm doing this very human thing, right? And now I'm going to let that go and come back to the breath. And it doesn't have that long sentence. You just go, back. It's almost like you don't even need to talk about it. It's just like, right, back. I see it. Yeah. Right. And you're just back to the breath. And then another thing will carry you. I see that, right? And you're seeing through the solidness of holding on to your story. And your story will be made up of thoughts, feelings, memories, physical sensations, and if you can think of something else, that too. It's made up of all kinds of moments of experience that we hold on to me. And so trusting in the Dharma in this context is saying, I'm willing to believe that what the Buddha taught is that me is a trap. That me is not helpful. That me is not real. It's sort of like a dream. And a bigger possibility will open up if I can let go of holding on to that rock. It'll be more like a river than a rock. So I'll let go of holding on to me in a way that hurts and see if I can get back to the flow. Right? Of course, to do that and to do it in a way that's transformative, and here's the hard part, you have to admit that you have an ego. And many of us, when we start a spiritual practice or we start a spiritual search, we're in such a hurry to be saints that we forget that we're human. And so you sit down for your first meditation and someone says, you should get over your ego, and you go, that's it, I'm done with ego. And a world of experience has been ignored. And the energy that would be transformative of all the examples that we had that were so wonderful, like feeling that you can't do something like an expressive project like artwork or, um, you know, uh, I loved it, being told to do the I statement and going, that's not how I do it. I talk about you. Right? Or here, I'll just pick another one. Uh, Thinking that you couldn't say no to authority, or you were like, that was too challenging. And then going, no, I can do that. It's like sort of surprising. You're in a different story, but you have to be willing to see that there was a previous way that you were holding on. You could say, in a very pithy way, that you're willing to get real about being a human being so you can let go of ego and find that you're more like a river than a rock. And when you have confidence in that, you can take refuge in the foundation Dharma. So with that, I'm going to pause the recording.